All right, we are recording. This is Mat120. We're writing equations of lines. And what we're going to do is try to do different things in here. Okay, so we have two different formulas we've used. Finding slope, we have this formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1, x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And another formula we have is the slope-intercept formula equals mx plus b. These are the two basic formulas we need. The slope intercept formula. This is the slope formula. Okay, so these are our two basic formulas that we're going to be working with, and let's see what we can do. Okay, so the first one they give us is, this is on page 129, if you have a book, but you can just follow on. They give us these this equation here. It's got a slope of, and see, slope usually is a fraction, but it could be a decimal. It could be negative 0.7. Okay, kind of strange one, but, and it has a y-intercept of 0.13. So we're not going to graph this. We're going to write an equation. And we're given this information. So let's see what we can do. We're going to start with our slope-intercept formula. I'm going to replace the slope, m, with negative 0.7. This is the same thing as m. And we're going to replace the y-intercept with just the 13. This is b. We want the y value. And that's all there is to it. So if they gave you the slope is, say, 1/2, and the y-intercept is 5, 0.5, your equation would be y equals 1/2 x plus 5. Questions? Pretty straightforward. Okay, but we know they're going to get harder. Okay. So let's see if we can do another one. So we get example 2. On this particular problem, it says the slope is 5, but it passes through a certain point. They don't give us the y-intercept. They just give us a point, and we know it passes through this point. And so we want to write an equation for this information. So the book does it a different way. It gives you another formula, but I'm going to give you a 3-step approach. I think this always works. Step 1, find m. Step 2, find b. Step 3, write an equation. And if you just follow these 3 steps, you'll be good. Now, step 1 is pretty easy because they told us the slope right here, but you always want to do that first, find that slope. So in this case, we know m is 5. That was easy enough. Step 2, find b. Well, this gets a little bit harder. We're going to use our slope-intercept form. And we're going to replace, but we're going to think of this point right here as x and y. So we're going to replace the x, the y, and the m. We're going to substitute everything into it. Y is -1, m is 5, x is 1/2. And this will help us find the y-intercept, b. Okay, now we do have a fraction. So let's change this to half. So let's make this -2 2s, and this is going to be 5/2. This is b. Then we can bring this 5/2 to the other side, or add a -5/2 to both sides, and b becomes -7/2, because they have a common denominator. Now we have found m, we have found b. If you want to change this to -3.5, you could. Change it to a mixed number if you want to do it that way. Either way is okay. And now we can write our equation. We're going to use our y equals mx plus b form. But this time we want it in general terms. So all we're going to do is replace the m with 5 and the b, and we use the 3.5, -3.5. So y equals 5x minus 3.5. Or you could have y equals 5x minus 7/2. Either way is okay. So you want to find your slope and your y-intercept, and then you can write this equation. So I think, we can use a point slope formula, but the problem with that is you're going to have to memorize one more formula. And why do that? We already have our two basic formulas right here. And that's all we really need is just those two basic formulas. We can write equations all over the place. Okay, let's try something else. Okay, what if they tried to be a little tricky and they give us just 2 points? They gave us just 2 points and they said, write an equation. Okay, and what they did, they said this equation passes through the point 2, 3 and -6, 1. This is example 3 in your book on 131. So we're going to use our 3-step approach. Find m, find the y-intercept, write equation. Okay, find the slope. And we know m is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So we're going to substitute. Let's label these. x1, y1, x2, y2. So m is, we want to be careful, 1, take away +3, -6, subtract +2. So kind of going from the back, 1, take away 3, -6, take away 2. Now let's see what we get. Got 1 minus 3, that would be a -2. And you could, if it helps you, if you want to change this to addition or something like that, you can go change, and here you can do change. So that's -8. Let's reduce that down 1/4. So step 1 completed. I found M. Now I'm going to try to find B. Okay, how am I going to do that? I'm going to start out with my general formula, mx plus b. And I can substitute either one of these points in, but I'm probably going to take the first one because there's no negatives, a little bit easier. So in place of y, I'm going to put this 3 right here. In place of m, I'm going to put the 1/4. In place of x, I'm going to put the 2. And that should give me b with some work, So let's change 3 to 12ths. Okay, I'm going to multiply 3 by 4. And we're going to change it to 4ths. Did I say 12ths? 3 times 4 is 12. And we're going to put that over 4. 12 over 4, 3, equals 2/4 plus b. Now I can move this 2/4 over. It gives me 10/4 equals b. And I can reduce 10/4 down to 5/2. So now I can write my equation. I can either leave it 5/2 or I think I change it to 2.5, but I could do it either way. Okay, since this is a fraction, I might just leave it. So now, step 3, write the equation. I'm going to start out with my y equals mx plus b, but remember I want it more general. So y is now equal to my slope, 1/4 x, plus my y-intercept. I can use any one of these, but I'm going to use the 5/2. And there I've got my equation. So 3 steps: find m, find b, write an equation. So that works for if you're given 2 points, if you're given a slope and a point, if you're given just this information right here, the slope and the y-intercept, we do the same thing. Find m, find b, write an equation. Okay. Here's another one that's a little tricky. On this problem, we want to write an equation of a line parallel or perpendicular to a line. Okay, so here we have an equation, or we have an equation that contains a point, -1, 3. And we have another equation. We have just a general equation, 2x plus y equals 10. And we want to write an equation that passes through this point, but is parallel to the given equation. Passes through this point, and it's parallel to this equation. Sounds kind of hard, huh? Okay, write equation. So how are we going to do that? Okay, well, our basic 3 steps. Find m. So we're going to take the equation that's we're given, and we're going to try to find m out of that. So how would we do that? Well, we're going to solve this for y. Let's bring this 2x to the other side, or add a -2x to both sides. And because it's parallel to this, it's going to have the same slope. The slopes are equal. So m is going to be -2 because it is parallel. Okay, so we found m. Next thing we want to do is find b. So we'll start out with our general equation or formula. And in this formula, we're going to substitute our point and our slope. So our point, y would be 3. M would be, we just figured it out, -2. X would be -1. And B will be what we're trying to find. And so this gives me 3 equals 2 plus B. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And we get B equals 1. So now we got our M. We've got our B. And now we can write our equation. So y equals mx plus b. General terms, y equals m, -2x. See, now it's going to have the same slope as the equation we started out with. It was a little hard. We had to put this in a better form, in a graphing form. And then b is 1. This would be parallel to the one we had. Let's see if I can make a little sketch of it. The original equation was starting at right here at negative at 10. And it was going down 2 and over 1. 2 and over 1. Kind of hard to draw it, and I should use scrap paper here. But if we do it kind of careful, it should go probably through 5 right there. So let me draw one. So it's dropping down 2 and over 1. I've been off a little bit. So that was the original equation. Now our equation starts at 1, and it goes down 2 and over 1. And you can see it is parallel. Pretty cool. And it was supposed to go through the point -1, 3. Now that's a little harder to see. Let's see, this one was supposed to start at 1 and go down 2 and over 1. Oh, it was supposed to go through the point, excuse me, -1, 3. I was thinking of -3. And does it look like it would go through -1 right here? 3. Does it look like it goes through that point? Yeah, looks like it probably would go through that point. It's kind of a rough sketch, but it should give us, let's label these X and Y. Okay, so we can see it is parallel to the given equation right here, and we've solved it. Okay, let's try one more here. Even more, just as interesting. We're given a point, and we're given an equation. And they want us now to write an equation where this point is, write an equation that's perpendicular to the given equation that passes through this particular point. Perpendicular to given equation, and it must pass through that point. So it's perpendicular to the given equation and passes through given point. Whoa, crazy. Well, 3-step approach. Let's find our slope. Okay, so we're going to take our given equation. We're going to rewrite this for y. So I'm going to bring this x to the other side. Negative x, positive x, okay? Divide both sides, add a positive x to both sides. Now we're going to divide everything by 4. Write that as 1/4 x plus 5. We're not concerned with the 5. Cross that off. We're concerned with this slope right here. Now, our slope, if it's perpendicular, is equal to the opposite reciprocal of this, of given slope. So we want the opposite of that. That would be, our perpendicular slope would be negative, and then it would be the reciprocal of 1/4, which is 4. So that's the slope we're going to use. Our perpendicular slope would be this. Okay, next we got to find b. Should be pros of doing this. Y equals mx plus b. Substitute in our point, 2, -3. Just be careful. You know, y is, you might want to label these and make sure. Y is your -3. X is your 2. And your slope you're going to use is -4. Wow, whole numbers. Or integers at least. -3 equals -8 plus b. -8's coming over to the other side. Add a +8 to both sides, 5. 5 is b. Pretty cool. So now we got m, we've got b. Write the equation. That's why I like to use this method, because you don't have to think so hard. You're just doing the same thing. You're always finding m, you're always finding b, you're writing an equation. And it'll work in higher math too. You can use this in calculus. You can use it whenever you need to use it. You got it handy. Y equals m -4x plus 5. And there's our equation. That would be perpendicular. Now, what I'm going to do is graph this thing and see if it actually works. Got some graph paper here. So let's graph the original equation and then graph this one. Okay, here's x, here's y. This one started at 5, right? Oh, on the y-axis, that was our intercept. Remember, this is your intercept right here. This is your b. And it went up 1 and over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe not the prettiest, but that was the equation. Now we wanted one that was perpendicular. I should have given myself more room. Let's see if we get enough. This is also going to start at 5. See? But our slope is what? -4. So we're going to go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1, right there. And if we did it correctly, this should be a right angle right there. Here was the original equation. And here's our new and improved equation. And there we got it. So we can do all kinds of things. We can write an equation that's given through the only difference between this problem and the last problem we did, when they're parallel, the slopes are going to be the same. Slopes same. And when they're perpendicular, the slopes are opposite reciprocals. So you just take the reciprocal, 4. Otherwise, you do the same thing, and you find your B, and you write your equation. But, you know, this equation normally will have to be rewritten unless it was in the right form to begin with. Okay, so is there any particular problem you'd like to see, maybe off the assignment? You could try or whatever. There's quite a bit of information here, you know, we went over in a pretty brief time. We learned how to write an equation given just the slope and the y-intercept. We learned how to write an equation that passes through 2 points. We wrote an equation that was parallel, but I did it a little differently from the book because I just think why learn a different method for each one? Then it just confuses you. If you do them all the same way, you won't have any trouble. Find M, find P, write an equation. Find M, find P, write an equation. So I know the other instructor that teaches over here does it exactly the same way. We worked together for 40 years, so we kind of know each other pretty well. And he likes to teach it this way also. So, you know, if you took a class from him, it would be basically the same idea. Questions? Speak up. I'm going to stop the video recording at this point.